Hello. As I said before, we are going to show you how to make a date square. Now, as I said, this can be made with just about any filling. You could, if you don't want dates, you could easily use cut up figs for this, or you could even skip this step altogether and use apple pie filling or cherry pie filling, or mincemeat. As long as it's not too watery, you don't want a wet square with this. So, to start with, we are going to turn our pan on, our pot here. There we go, got a nice flame. Now, in here, I have 500 grams of dates. So that has been weighed. And in they go to the pot. Now we're going to add 1 cup, as you can see, kind of there, 1 cup of water. And we are just going to let that cook. I'm going to turn this down from high to medium, and then I'm going to do something that most people don't think to do. I'm going to put a cover on this. Now, we happen to use a pizza pan. If you have a lid for your pot, do that. The second part of the recipe is the base and the top. It's the same, so as you can see, we're going to use quinoa flakes for this. I have this already pre-measured. You use 1.5 cups of quinoa flakes, or oats if you can tolerate oats, but keep in mind that in Canada, oats are not considered gluten-free, even from a wheat-free source. So in our kitchen, we use quinoa flakes. So again, 1.5 cups of quinoa flakes, 1.5 cups of whichever baking mix you prefer to use. We use our own mix for this. And we are going to take this and put the whole thing, just like that, in the mixer. Now we're going to add to that 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now, the last of the ingredients that go in here that are dry is 1 cup of packed brown sugar. I have yet to find a good substitute for brown sugar. If you know of a good substitute for brown sugar that produces the same results, let me know. Now, we are going to simply put the machine down, lock it into place. We're going to turn it on just so it stirs and gets that nicely mixed. Now, don't worry about the lumps, brown sugar lumps, it just does. There, now that looks about right. There is another way to do this. You could simply put this all in the bowl, take 2 forks or a pastry blender and blend it all together until it's combined, but not like Play-Doh. It's the only way I can really describe it. If you mix it too much, it turns into Play-Doh. Now, because this has been sitting out, the earth balance has been sitting out, it's nice and soft, and this is what part you can only really do by hand. I have yet to find another way that's as good. And you just slowly squish it in and let that paddle do its job. This is a total of 2 sticks, or the equivalent of 1 cup of earth balance. Now, if you only have spreadable earth balance, because of the water content that it has, don't use a full cup. Start with 3/4 of a cup. What you'll find is that your product will not it just doesn't work as well. Same for margarine. If you're going to use margarine in this, use a solid brick margarine as opposed to a spreadable tub margarine. I know that if you want to make this soy-free, you'll have to use the Earth Balance. It's in a tub. It's the spreadable, or the base sal. You kind of don't have much of a choice, so just use less. Now, as you can see, it's starting to come together. It's got a nice loose consistency to it still. Yeah, the mixer washes. So do my hands. So, and there we go. That is perfect. Just like that. You just see how they're just starting, the clumps are just starting to form. That's when you stop, because if you go any further than that, it won't work properly. Now I've already prepared my pan. It's a 9x13. I've lined it with parchment paper, and yes, as you can see, I use Paper Chef. This is what the crumble looks like, and we're going to put about half in there. And I know it doesn't look like enough, but when you spread it out and press it down, it'll be fine. Now, the only other thing you really have to remember is if you're doing this all at the same time, don't forget about your dates. Now, we turned it down, we put the cover on. I'm going to turn it back up to about a medium-high heat. I'm going to take the cover off. Now, you see what's happened? Because we had a cover on there, now you're going to see the rest of my kitchen. Because we had a cover on there, the dates have basically steamed. There's still all that moisture in there, which is perfect. We want the dates lovely and squishable. Now, some people put lemon juice, lemon zest, all kinds of things like that in their date square. But I can tell you this, if you don't already know, dates are pretty sweet. They don't need extra sugar. The original recipe called for a cup of sugar to go in here as well. I'll be honest, that's really sweet. Now, as you can see, when you start to pull this away, the most of that water is just about gone. So now we're going to turn it off. We're going to take our scraper right out of there. As you can see, it's another spoon scraper, but I do use I do use one with a wooden handle for this job, and the ever sturdy, ever trusty potato masher. And we just simply get in there with the potato masher and mash. And really get in there. It depends. If you want to still see whole pieces of date, then do it a little less. If you want it really, really smooth, you could even take it and put it in a food processor. But I find something quite satisfying about using a potato masher. Now, as you can see, the consistency on that is pretty perfect. So we'll just clean that up and get it ready to put into our pan over our base. There. Now, as you can see, it's all patted out and nice and flat. Don't worry if there are lumps of butter or fat left over. I have been asked if we could use coconut cream, the thick coconut oil for this. I don't see why you couldn't. I haven't tried, but as long as it's not oil. Oil doesn't work for this. Not nicely. You end up with a very greasy, unappetizing product. So try as much as possible to use a product that is more like a brick, firm, something really firm. So butter is what I use when I am not making it vegan. We use the Earth Balance. You could, as I said, you could use the coconut cream, the really thick coconut cream. You can use the tub margarine, but then again, as I said, you'll have to make sure that you use a little less so that you don't end up with a very wet product. So now our pan, as you can see, is all ready for dates. Now, as you can see, the dates are in, and I know it never quite looks like it's enough, but believe it or not, it really is. Now, I'm using an offset spatula for this. I like to use the offset spatula. It just gives me a little more control. And you are simply going to carefully pat in. You're going to move it around. And you don't want to move the very bottom, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up having very large holes in the bottom, and that's not pleasant for anyone. So, as I say, I'm just going to get moving on this, and I'm going to spread this out nice and evenly. You could use a knife or the scraper. A scraper if you want. I find that dates need a firm hand, which is why I like my mini offset spatula for this. Now, as you can see, the base is covered with the dates, and I don't know if you can see that exactly, but I've left a little bit of a gap, about 1/4 of an inch, about half a centimeter, somewhere in there, all the way around the edge. Now that is simply to prevent the inside from leaking out. You'll also find that if you're making this for your family, the edge pieces are the ones that will go first, because they've got that little bit extra of the base. So now what we're going to do is, as you can see, we still have base left, because the base now becomes our top. So, as you can see, there's some large lumps. You're just going to take them in your hand. You're going to just give them a little crumble, just like that. And again, you're just going to cover that top. Don't worry if it spills a little, it's fine. And then you're going to very gently press down on your top. Turn it around. If you can do it all in one shot on one side, do it all on one side. This has got to be one of the easiest recipes to make. It is fabulous to play with. You could even put a spice in the in the crumble if you wanted. I don't know that it needs it, but you could if you were putting apple in there and you didn't spice the apple filling, but you spiced the base itself. Oh, that sounds fabulous. So there you are. Now, as I said, don't worry if it spills a little. It's not going to burn. It'll be fine. And there you are. Now, this goes into a 350-degree oven for approximately, believe it or not, 27 minutes. But that's my oven. So anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes. Check it at 25. If it's nicely golden, I know it's very dark brown and it looks like it wouldn't change, but it does. That baking soda in there is going to puff it up a little bit. So put it in the oven. As I said, 350-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes, depending on your oven.
Let them figure them out.
So, it's been 27 minutes. And as you can see, hopefully, it has changed color. It's a lovely toasty color now.
And it's the number one nutrition recommended non-drug
There we go. So, it's a lovely toasted color now. It's all cooked. Now we just have to let it cool before it can be cut and served to, well, whomever deserves a piece.
Wow, looks nice.
I hope you've enjoyed this.
Agreeing on a color? Done. With everything you need for a makeover.
I hope that you enjoy baking again. Have a great day. And remember, don't be afraid to bake.